Hey guys, so my name is Ramsey and welcome into the Rajathon channel. We are doing an in-depth review on The Black Prism, a book that I very much enjoyed, probably the best book I've read this year. So after the last video, my wife asked me, why did I keep saying we? And I don't know. I'm going to try not to do that anymore. I'm taking the mouse out of my pocket and we're going to try to do this book review. All right, so I love this book a lot. I enjoyed Kip, I enjoyed Gavin, I enjoyed the intrigue of it, and I really want to dive into it with you guys. I want to talk about some interesting things about the magic that they had in this world, the reality of it, where it wasn't as fantastical as, you know, stuff levitating, but it had physicality to it, but it also had obviously it was magic, so it had that interesting aspect to it. I mean, the characters, there's too many of them to list right now. They were fantastic. Totally think you guys should read the book. I'm going to do a should you read. I'll put it up there when it's done. And I'm excited for the interesting topics in this book. There's going to be tons of spoilers, and I want you guys to come join me. So I'm going to do a quick intro, and so I'll see you in a sec. So, as we look into this review, I knew this was going to be a good book. I really enjoyed Brent Weeks' writing in the Night Angel trilogy. I guess there's also a short ebook that kind of is like a prequel that I haven't read yet, but I'm going to go back and read that. So I was really excited about it. I'd heard the hype from other people, other booktubers that were, reading the book and saying it was great. Went into a Barnes and Noble, saw it, went, let me give it a shot. And I am so glad that I did. I really, 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 really like this book. So far, really, really like the series. I'm 3/4 of the way through book 3, and it was hard to put it down today. Like, while reading it, I was like, well, I can, 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes, maybe another chapter. So if that's the kind of book you're into, it's big. They're big, big books, but they grip you. They pull you into the story, and it's so much fun. I think Brent Weeks was listening to Dark Side of the Moon when he thought up this magic system, and he thought that would be a neat and interesting magic system. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know. Maybe that's just a dad joke. But like I said earlier in the intro, the magic system is so cool. It's imaginative, it's neat. Sometimes with blue Luxon, when all of a sudden it goes away, it turns into dust. Yellow Luxon, if it's drafted perfectly and sealed, it stays forever. Kip even talks about in the very beginning where he's collecting it, finding it. Every color has its own properties. The colors affect you in different ways. Sometimes drafters can draft 1, sometimes they can draft 2, sometimes they can draft 3, 4, and even all 7. So it's really, really cool to see the way that these different colors interact, how they act differently, how, blue can be solid, easy to break, green can be heavy and malleable, yellow is, dead center, orange is flexible and has different properties. Red then is flammable, sub-red is heat. The super violet, it has different properties. I haven't really dug into that one yet. I'll dig into it a little bit later. And they're all just really neat. And then the cool thing about it too is when you're drafting that color, your emotions are changed. So when you're green, you're more wild. When you're blue, you're more logical. When you're yellow, you're also in the middle, like yellow Luxon. With red, you're fiery, passionate, prone to anger. So it's really, really cool to see the way the magic affects people in the world. And then also, this magic has real consequences where the if you draft too much, your eyes fill up with the Luxon, and as it continues to go, you can break the halo, which I imagine would be more of like a shattering of your iris, and you go insane. And then a lot of the people that have gone insane try to improve their own bodies, infusing Luxon into their bones, into their skin, removing their skin and creating a hard shell over themselves, or burning their body in a way that they create different situations. And that is neat. Like, it is scary to think of a insane person with abilities that a normal person couldn't deal with, but also totally off the rocker. So they're attacking you because they're insane, and they've tried to create their body. They've created, claws or sharp objects, or gone into a golem form in the green sometimes. Um, so interesting the way that he handled this, and I was really excited to go into it. The neat parallel I saw with this, being a Wheel of Time fan, is the magic making you go insane when you use too much of it. The male half of the true source, you go insane. And then in this one, when you use too much of your Luxon and you're drafting and drafting and drafting, what they call using it, they draft the Luxon, which is their chromalurgy, which is a really cool name. Um, they break the halo and they go insane. So the parallel for me really drove it home that I was going to like this book. Um, and it was neat because our main character Gavin was actually going out and hunting these they call them whites. I'm not saying it right, but like these people that have turned into insane creatures. So the Black Prism is the start of a 5-book series, and I don't have the book with me because I let my mom borrow it. I was so impressed with it. Like, my reading buddy's my mom. So as soon as I got done reading it, I went to her house and I was like, "Hey, you need to read this." And she enjoyed it. She's finished it as well, but she just hasn't got the book back to me yet. And as I really enjoy doing these in-depth reviews, I might even go back and do one on the magic system, or going into different characters as well, because I really enjoy this series. I'd love to dig back into it. Probably when I finish the series, I'm going to do a reread right away and try to pick up on the things I didn't get, because I really enjoy that second level where all the foreshadowing makes sense as you're reading it. And you go, "Oh man, I didn't even notice this the first time." So I really want to dig into it again, and we'll probably do another video on this eventually. So as with all epic fantasy, we follow a few characters. I've talked about a couple of them. You have Gavin, who is our warrior pope kind of character. I really like him a lot. You have Kip, which is his bastard son, who Kip has never met his father before. And then you have Karis, who is the woman that Gavin loves but cannot be with. And then the other character that we get some other perspective is Viviana, or Viv. And she's kind of like Kip's guide, and really doesn't get a huge role in this story, but she does come up later in the other books. Still kind of a side character, but we do go through her perspective a little bit, and gives us kind of a different look into the world. So personally, my favorite character is Gavin. Connected with him a lot. He's the charismatic leader. He does some really cool stuff. But I also really connected with Kip. Kip, like me, had some trouble as a teenager. Needed a father, and you really understand that dynamic where he's a smart aleck, talking back, and I really see that when I was a young man. Like, I was adopted by my stepfather. He came into our lives when I was 9, and I showed so many of those similar traits. I was just not a nice kid, and I needed a father to help get me in line. And I'm so grateful that he came into my life and became that bastion of strength for me. And you see that happening with Kip and Gavin throughout the book. Even though, spoiler alert, I hope you're not here for spoilers, but Kip's not actually Gavin's son, because Gavin's Dazen. And so he still dives into that fatherly role, puts him in situations that are better for him, and tries to protect him. They don't know each other well yet, and so that's a bit of a interesting dynamic, and it gets better in the later books. But you really see him latch on to that father figure, and I did the same thing. I mean, not long after my mom and my dad were married, I was calling him my dad, because I needed a father in my life. Heck, my mom was raising us as vegetarians, and he introduced us to meatloaf. God bless that man. Karis was really cool, but she gets captured, so all of her really cool parts are at the end of the book. Her and Kip kind of team up together and run through the battle, and what she does there is really interesting and neat. I really enjoyed her part of the book at the end, But really, up until about 4/5 of the book, she doesn't do a whole lot. Just right there at the beginning, and then right there at the end. And there's some really interesting side characters that I was really excited. And now that I've read a little bit more, it's good to get to know them later on in the series. You have Iron Fist, who is the commander of the Blackguards, who comes with Gavin to Garriston, the town he's trying to save because he knows the armies are coming. And Corvin Devanis, who is Liv's dad, who used to be Dazen's general, which Gavin is Dazen, so he was Gavin's general helped who helped Dazen become Gavin after the battle at the end of their war, and was the other person who knew. It was like Corvin and his mom are the only people that knew that Dazen was Gavin. It's a little confusing, but once you read the book, it kind of makes sense going through. But in my explanation, I bet it was a little confusing there. So Corvin was really cool. We get to see some interesting parts with him, especially he interacts with Karis early in the book, and then with Gavin and the army at the end of the book. So pros and cons. This book had the best twist probably that I've ever read, maybe. I was so amazed when Gavin goes down into the prison to visit his brother, and he's like, I'll only tell you the secret if you admit to me that you're not really who you say you are. I shut the book, got up, and was like, what? What is going on here? Oh my gosh. So the guy we thought was the bad guy is actually the good guy, and the bad guy who is supposedly, like, it threw me for a loop. It, like you just heard me talking about it earlier, where all of a sudden Dazen is Gavin and Gavin is Dazen, and it's backwards and forwards. And best twist that I've had in a book, and in, if not ever, a very, very long time. And then because Gavin, the real Gavin, was locked in a prison for 16 years in solitary confinement, he's gone insane. And he actually talks to himself, thinking like, oh, the old me is dead, so Gavin is dead, and he sits with him in the prison, mocking him. I guess I didn't mention, we do get some of Dazen Davin's perspective. The battles are also really, really well done. You get such a vivid picture. There's a scene where Gavin by himself fights a right, or I need to figure out the right way to say that word. And then there's scenes where they have the whole battle, and those were impressive and amazing. And then you add in the Luxon as their magic system, when they're like throwing it and shooting it and making projectiles and shields and setting things on fire, and it is so cool the way he describes this battle. He describes a really cool battle on the sea as well, where they're attacked by pirates. Best battles I've seen in a very, very long time, and I really, really enjoyed it. Probably the next best battle scenes was probably some of Stormlight Archive stuff, where Kaladin runs and jumps, book one, spoilers, sorry. And then, so like some of the Wheel of Time stuff, like right near the end, like the last battle in Wheel of Time, that was great too. But yeah, the battles in this were just fantastic. The characters, fantastic. Gavin's interesting. Kip's interesting. Karis is interesting. Iron Fist is interesting. Viv is interesting, though you don't get a lot of time with her. Corvin's interesting. The White is interesting, who I haven't even talked about yet. She is like the opposite of this. Well, I don't even know if she's the opposite. She's like another religious leader. You have like Gavin, who's the Prism. Get out of my face. You have Gavin, who's the Prism. You have the White, and then you have the Black. They kind of balance each other out with the color spectrum, I guess. I guess like their internal Senate. Each color is represented in their Senate. You have the White and the Black, and then you have the Prism. All the powers balanced out. So it's a neat, interesting political system if you're into political stuff. The religion really got me as well, where Gavin's responsibilities as the Prism, being the warrior pope that he is, he gets this feeling where he has lost his faith personally, but he doesn't want to take that away from others. so many others, his mother and the others that are coming for the freeing, they actually come to Garriston because he wants to go save this town from a war that's coming. And they come to be with him for the freeing because they're about to break the halo. They're about to go insane, and they know they have to commit suicide, really assisted suicide through Gavin, to keep from going insane and becoming these awful creatures, which these awful creatures make up most of the army that is coming for them. These are people that have rejected the idea of following the law and committing basic, they call it freeing, but really it's assisted suicide, so that they don't go insane and hurt people. And so they have taken this oath where they're like, look, we have this great power, but we have to limit ourselves. And when we know we're about to break our halo, we have to commit this suicide. We have to go be freed. And so they build this great wall right beforehand. Gavin does all this work, and this young man creates the design. He's a young artist, and he's burned through his halo really, really young. He's maybe in his 20s. Most people make it to about late 30s, 40s, and he can't stop drafting. He enjoys drafting. He's an artist. He uses his art to draft, and so he's so young, but he's dying. He's about to break the halo in his 20s, and he creates this beautiful wall. And Gavin creates it in a solid yellow luxon that'll last forever. And they call it the Brightwater Wall. So, as most people don't have two names in this world, and so I think his name's Ariad. Gavin names him Ariad Brightwater, and man, I'm just crying like a baby because this guy, he has his name on this amazing thing. And it's so brilliant the way that it pulls the emotion out of you, and you're just like, I want, I want, I want, I just want Gavin to be this great character. He builds this young man up, then he has to stab him in the heart. That's the freeing. They confess their sins, and he stabs him in the heart. Could you imagine being with someone for their most tender moment right before they die, and then you have to do the killing stroke? I mean, it tears Gavin up on the inside. It's so powerful. Drew me in. As a religious person myself, I was floored by the intricacy of it, and I loved it. I tore through those pages, crying, weeping. I guess I wasn't weeping, but Then he had to free his mother, and she told him how much she loved him, how much she still believed in their God. And I don't think I could kill my mother, even if I had to, even if I knew it was the right thing to do. That was powerful. That drew emotion out of me, and I think it would draw emotion out of almost anyone. So for the cons, I had a hard time personally finding them. I didn't feel the cons that I'm going to mention are my personal cons, but a lot of people do have problems with these two things. So I wanted to mention them in case you felt that these were an issue. I don't want to glaze over that. If you don't like something, that's totally fine. Just because I didn't find a problem with it doesn't mean that you finding a problem with it is a bad thing. And hopefully we can talk about it and be like, oh, a lot of people have said Brent Weeks gets even better as the books go on. So hopefully the problems that you may have had with it, which I didn't see personally, I was going to say unfortunately, but it's not unfortunate. I just didn't see them personally. I didn't feel they were big cons. Hopefully he gets better at that and is not as judged harshly on it. But the two big ones were when he describes Kip. He describes him as fat very, very often, and that is true. And then the sexism. I personally didn't really see it. I see where it could be thought of as sexism, but we spend a lot of time in a teenager's mind. And I was a teenage boy, and it's a good thing that God made us nervous around women when we're that age, because all we can think about is sex. He's 15. I am so glad that nobody was able to see into my mind when I was 15. because I would probably be considered very sexist as well when I'm not. So I definitely want to defend him a little bit there because he was really trying to get you into a 15-year-old's mind. And like a lot of male authors, I don't think they do very well inside a female's mind. So I think men try to think how a woman would feel, and so it's really a huge guess sometimes. And so I think, some of the Viv and Karis's thoughts, I've heard it said that they were described as, oh, well, what did that man think of me, or some things like that, where personally I would think maybe a woman would think that way. And so until I watched a female review the book, I had never thought that was I never thought that was hurtful or sexist or rude. So maybe it's just the different way that our minds are wired. Maybe Brent Weeks and I just don't see that as sexist that way, and it's an unfortunate thing. And I hope it didn't hurt anybody's feelings. And then, as a hefty fellow myself, when he describes Kip as fat, he's describing his inner monologue. As a guy who struggles with my weight, I've lost 30 pounds this year, and I don't feel it. I still feel, ugh. And so I understand Kip's desire to want to be thinner, the shame of being a chubby guy. Why did I start growing a beard? Because I was starting to get a third chin. It, it's tough as a chubby guy, and you think about it constantly. You look in the mirror, you take your shirt off to go take a shower. You think about, oh man, gosh, I got to do something about this. I feel disgusting. And so I think he described it really, really well. The inner monologue of that, I need to fix this. This is a problem. It's my identity, and I don't want it to be. And even though it was very repetitive, I think a lot of times inner monologue can be very repetitive. You go through the same struggle again and again and again, and then finally you break through that moment. So personally, didn't feel it was a con, but I do understand that repetitive can get annoying if you're just reading a story. So I do get that. So in closing, I loved it. It was a great book. I've already read all of number 2. I'm 3/4 of the way through number 3. This series is probably right up there with Wheel of Time for me. This, if they screw up book 4 and 5, that's gonna suck. But I've heard 4 is the best of the bunch already, so I'm so excited. I'm tearing through 3. Bought 4 on Amazon today, and I would love for you guys to read this with me. I will definitely do a spoiler free kind of should you read it. And then I'd love for you guys to join the Discord channel. It's something that I've kind of doing by myself right now, but I'd love to interact, doing some fan art stuff, doing book recommendations, and love to have you guys over there. That would be so much fun to interact with you guys. And then you guys have been commenting so much lately. I'm really excited. The channel, I did the BookTube newbie tag, and it just blew up. And I'm so thankful for all the cool people that have joined me on this journey of loving books and talking about books and being nerdy with books. And so if you can, please like the video, subscribe, leave a comment. I want to respond to everybody, talk with everybody. I really want these to be discussions about books where we discuss together. And I'd love to hear your ideas. That's really why I want to do this YouTube channel. So it was exciting for me to learn about how other people thought about things. And I'm so excited for that. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much.